one of the basic truths of investing is your return depends on your cost. So obviously the higher the price you pay, the lower will be the returns. So if you say you have a HDFC bond which is at 100 rupees and which gives a 7% return, you know you will get 7 rupees on it and you're happy with 7%. But if somebody else comes and says, I don't want 7%, I'm happy with 6% because I think this is a good company, that person will be willing to pay more for the bond. How much more? So much more that he gets 6% return. He is happy with 6% return. Now somebody else could come with a 5% requirement, somebody else could come with a 4% requirement. Similarly, if the person who was getting 7% might get an opportunity to put into some other bond or some other fund or some other investment avenue where he thinks he will get more than 7%. So he will just quit this investment at 100 and take his 100 rupees and put it somewhere else where he is going to get more than 7%. That is what determines the price of the bond. Logically, the bond price should not change at all if people's expectation does not change. So if I have invested at 7% bond in HDFC and I hold it for 30 years, there will be no price change if everybody behaves like me and says, oh, I don't need to trade, I'm going to hold it for 30 years. That doesn't happen. Interest rates keep fluctuating, which means people like me have higher expectations and suddenly they have lower expectations. I find that I've booked a lot of profit in the market, so I don't need to invest more money. So I will stick around with HDFC at 100 rupees. But suddenly I find that the market has fallen and I can easily get 11% or 12% in some other asset class. I will sell this even at a loss, even at 95. I might just get rid of it and say, that's okay. I put it at 100 bucks hoping to get 7. I got 7 for 1 year and that's enough. Now I'm happy to sell it off for 92, 93, 95, whatever be the price, because I think I can get a better price in some other asset class. I mean, I'm getting some other asset class at a better price where I think my yield will improve. That is what I'm trying to say. Now, you will hear great stories now of saying how the market has reached 50,000. Now a person invested when it was 25,000. Now the market has given fantastic. It has done very well over the past few years. But remember, March 2020, the same guy was perhaps panicking and saying I should sell all my equity and put money in debt. Or in July, he was regretting and saying, I wish I had sold all my debt instruments and equity instruments and put all the money in gold. That doesn't happen that way. So you should not invest just because your friend or your neighbor or your brother or your sister has made money. One more thing you realize is, oh, this stock has gone down recently and therefore it must be a good buy. That is also not true. A share is not a good buy because it has gone up. A share is not a good buy because it has gone down, right? Both are completely wrong reasons to be buying. Or to say, oh, my friend bought some real estate and that has not gone up at all, so therefore it is risky. Actually, if an asset has not gone up at all for say 5-6 years, it is not risky, it is less risky, right? It is. So all these are very likely to fail because the understanding of the business is not there. You're all talking about price, right? In an earlier example I spoke about, you're talking about the dog, where the dog is moving. That's not important. Where the man is going is important. If the basic underlying business is doing well, it will make money for you, provided you bought it at a reasonable price. If you pay a very high price, you will get a very poor return. So yes, it is possible that you can buy an Asian Paints at an atrociously high price or an ITC at an atrociously high price and not earn any money for a long period of time. It is possible. However, people try to kill this by doing an SIP. I do not know what works for you. SIP doesn't work. But I know one thing. When you are looking at an asset, you should look at the future cash flows. Some future cash flows are more easy to predict. So an ITC or an Asian Paints or HDFC Limited, the cash flows are far more easy to predict than say a Twitter or a Ola or Oyo Homes or any of these. There the cash flow is far more difficult to predict. You have to speculate on the end price at which you will sell. So today if you're buying Ola at 100 rupees and after 3 years you hope to sell it off at 200 rupees, Forget the fact that there is no cash flow in between. This 100 becomes 200, so your money has doubled in 3 years. That's 24% return, right? That is how you have to look for. So it becomes very difficult in evaluating companies like, say, Deccan Gold, because Deccan Gold will not pay you any dividend. It will not do anything. But the underlying asset is, it has got mines in Karnataka. So if the value of the mine goes up, the price will go up. The price has not gone up at all in 10 years. The question is, do you still want to hold on? Do you want to speculate because it's at 14, 15 rupees? Do you want to speculate that one day it will do well? Well, it's a very, very difficult call to take. Whereas a company like HDFC Limited is far easier in terms of cash flow. There need not be any noise in the price of HDFC Limited or State Bank of India or any of them, but suddenly you will find an NPA kicking in State Bank of India and bringing down the price. That is the risk. Thank you. Buffett keeps saying this, stick to your own level of competence in which you are investing. This is very true. And all of us need to find out what is our level of competence, level of interest in that subject, and the willingness to put in some effort in finding out what is right. For example, I don't have any ability to predict how people will move in housing, and therefore I cannot look at a piece of land and envisage how it will look after it is constructed. I cannot look at a complete barren land and look at a map and decide how it is going to look and whether people will be willing to pay a premium for it. I do not know how many new businesses will be set up in that place and what will happen, and therefore I am a very poor real estate investor. I have a friend who loves real estate, who can go stand in the place and absorb it, and he is now constructing his own house in Navi Mumbai. He believes that he has the competence for real estate, and so do I. I believe that he has that competence. He will be able to say, of course he can go wrong, like I can go wrong with share prices, he can go wrong. Now, if you do not have the ability to read a balance sheet or the willingness to learn reading a balance sheet or some basic microeconomics about what is the mega trends that is happening, etc., it is very difficult for you to be an investor in the listed company space, for sure. And the unlisted company space is far more challenging because you also have to constantly guess whether the promoter is a good guy, because all those qualities which you see in a promoter as a promoter is something very difficult for you to assess how it will be when you become his investor, because if he's smart and savvy and a hard negotiator, all that is going to hit you also, because you don't want him to be negotiating very hard with you. You think 100 rupees is a fair price and he thinks no, 150 is a fair price, right? There will be negotiation. So you find out what is your area of competence. So my area of competence is listed securities and top maybe 100 shares. I cannot go much way below and find out about quality of management. I am no longer tracking them. And I also, when the minute I decide that a company is worth looking at and worth buying, I talk to somebody and find out who is the analyst, because the analyst will obviously know much more than I will ever know. So sometimes I chat up before I buy, sometimes I buy and then chat up and realize I've made a mistake. Sometimes I chat up and then I find no, I've been right, so I go and add more. So I do all kinds of things. So you have to have your level of competence, your circle of competence, like Buffett calls it, and decide that, okay, cryptocurrency is not for me, gold is not for me, real estate is not for me, unlisted shares is not for me, startups is not for me. So you keep on eliminating, right? You say no, 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 no. And you say, okay, only equity shares. Any equity share? No. Top 50, top 100, top 200, that's at best, right? Because going below that, you don't know who is tracking it, whether there are young boys, girls even looking at it. I wouldn't know. So if I don't know that, and then I find it very difficult to predict cash flows, then I just stay away. So if a Ola were listed, I don't know. I may buy a little bit saying I don't want to miss out. FOMO, yes. But will I put in big money? I doubt whether I will ever do it. Maybe 500 shares, 1000 shares, 5000 shares, depending on the price, maybe 50 lakhs, but nothing beyond 50 lakhs for sure, right? That's scary. Even 50 lakhs is scary for me when I put in one single company at one point in time. I do it in smaller lots. After that it might grow, it might grow to one more digit after that. That's a different thing. But initially when I'm buying, I find it very difficult. So find your own level of competence, find how you will invest, because when you're investing in a startup, you may have to make a much bigger commitment. You may not have to pay, but you will have to make a bigger commitment. So everybody has their own level of competence and circle of competence within which they want to invest. And unless you decide to be brutally honest with yourself as to what interests you, what is your level of competence, what you're willing to, how much effort you're willing to put, right? Unless you're willing to be very honest with your own self about all this, you should not turn an investor just blindly because everybody else is investing. That's a very wrong reason to be investing, right? Thank you.